have the one, the only Benji. Sorry, give me a second. Stop laughing at me. Benji has worked in VC before, computational biology, and joined Molecule 2 years ago, and then last year kind of stumbled on something amazing and had this idea, managed to sort of execute on it in like 2 weeks, launched a sort of initial version that got launched at Solana Breakpoint, and has now grown up into be Pump Science, as I'm sure many of you have heard of Pump Science. So yeah, he'll be chatting to you a little bit about what they do. Take it away.
Thanks, Ella. And yeah, enough of the fun shit. Let's get back to the AI and crypto. So hi, everyone. My name is Benji. Thank you so much for having me. This talk is called The Rise of the PhDegen, Playing the Biotech Video Game. And the best part about the video game that we're creating is that you're already logged in.
But clicker, yeah.
Vibes. You logged in not by choice, but by some miracle that we can't really explain. We don't really know how we got here or why we're here, but we're here, and it's pretty cool. And so might as well stick around. And look, I hate to go like full Brian Johnson on you guys, but I think he's right. Like the ultimate game is don't die, right? And I think maybe what he has potentially gotten wrong though is that hyperbaric oxygen tanks and like sleeping well isn't gonna give that much more time to you. If we wanna make real discoveries and like really extend our life, we have to go wade into the unknown. And ultimately that's what we're here to do. And I think we all know that AI is gonna have a big part in this, right? Like it's this impending technology that is going to solve all our problems. But the problem is that the training data for AI, which is basically its lifeblood, does not yet exist. If you look at basically how many compounds have been tested to see whether or not they extend life, the answer is basically 2,000. There's 36 billion synthetically accessible molecules that we could test. Anything you could come up with, vitamin C, caffeine, whatever. And only 2,000 have been tested. In our opinion, this is absolutely criminal. And so our goal is to basically wade into the unknown, go on this journey, and find what actually can extend our lifespans. And so yeah, so one big challenge though is what do you test on, right? Humans are super expensive, they live a really long time, and they're really hard to coordinate. And so if you wanted to test all these compounds on humans, you would probably struggle to get funding, you'd recruit, it'd be basically impossible. So you walk this down from the highest potential organism you could get to, that's the most similar to us, which is us, and you go all the way down to like microscopic worms. What you realize is if you're trying to optimize for developing training data for AI, you are creating this optimization function, which is signal per cost time. And that is what we're trying to optimize for, is feed AI with as much signal as we possibly can with the least amount of cost. And so we have created a pipeline out of this, where we take compounds, we test them on worms to see, do they extend lifespan of the worms? Then we give them to flies. Do they extend lifespan of the flies? Then we advance to mice, and finally humans. And as you walk down this funnel, you get increasingly more expensive, the experiments take longer, and hopefully you have higher quality information that's coming in the top of the funnel. And so I think when people look at us, they see us as like just a giant token trading platform. But I think when you look a little bit deeper, what we really are is just basically this funnel. And our goal is to have the best compounds make it all the way through the funnel, and we are just using market-driven mechanisms to shunt the best compounds through this funnel. And so there's basically two ways to engage with our platform. Number one is you can submit compounds to the top of the funnel, and number two is you can trade the compounds that are already in the funnel. And so our protocol is meant to be very simple. It's basically compound gets submitted, we launch a token, the token trading fees fund all the research, and then eventually our goal is to commercialize all of the ingredients we find that are useful that extend lifespan or have the best evidence that they will extend human lifespan, and then reward token holders with whatever proceeds come back. And so, cool. So yeah, maybe going through the science first. So the first experiment we run is on C. elegans. They're microscopic worms. They're about the size of your eyelash. And we are working with a company that has basically automated lifespan testing for these experiments. Not only are they helping us develop AI-ready data sets, but they have embedded AI into their experiments to bring down the cost. And so what we can do with basically $500 and a compound is get an effect of whether it extends life with 120 animals, which is pretty cool. Does it predict whether it'll extend our lives? I mean, of course, there's some signal lost. We are not worms, but there is a lot of similarity. And I think that's the important piece. It's like we are 35% similar to these tiny microscopic worms. So it is a super valuable data point. After worms, we go to flies. We're working with a lab that does automated tracking of the flies as well. We monitor them their entire lifespan. We live stream all of this data directly to users on our site. And the goal is for people to actively trade based on the real-time data outputs that come out. And so not only do we just measure them for their lifespan, but we also put them to functional tests. So on the right, what you can see, and on the next slide in a little bit more detail, is fly racing. So we have basically turned fly races into a game. It generates really valuable scientific data. And yeah, we're enabling users to kind of speculate on it. So, you know, if you think the compound will beat the control, you can take a leverage long position on the token. And, you know, anyway, this is kind of the general idea of pump science is we're trying to make science a video game where you can actively be a degen and contribute, you know, your trading to scientific progress. And so after the flies come mice. And so mice are super expensive to test on. You'd be surprised. It's really, it is definitely a tall ask to be able to fundraise for a mouse experiment. So this is why we run it third. And so yeah, same thing here. We're working with labs that are doing automated tracking. And the important piece here is that, you know, you can run functional tests. You can also test a mouse its whole life, but you know, it's not super exciting to just watch mice slowly die. And so we want to make this like actually an engaging experience. And so by enabling live streaming, by creating these functional tests, in addition to just the general lifespan experiments, we're able to keep re-engaging users, bringing them back in, and actually make it an intrinsically fun experience to engage with. And so the last, obviously, class of experiment, which we're excited about doing, we have not done yet, is human testing. And so what's interesting here is, you know, of course, we probably can't fund a human lifespan test. You know, we'll die in the process. It just takes too long and it's too expensive. And so what we're looking for is surrogates for human lifespan. So what can we test and get as an endpoint that will predict whether or not a compound makes a human live longer? And what we have found to be the highest quality data point is called VO2 max. It's basically a measure of somebody's cardiorespiratory fitness. It's super cheap to get. Most wearables track it. And yeah, so therefore it's very distributed. You don't need to go get lab testing for it. You wear a smartwatch and you get the number. But yeah, so this, you know, is basically one of the most predictive numbers for how long you live. So when we do human testing, this is likely the data point that we will look for as the primary endpoint. All right, so what data have we actually generated? So to date, we've run, 12 experiments, 5 on worms, 4 on flies, and we have found some interesting data. So rifampicin, which is a commonly prescribed antibiotic, increases the lifespan of C. elegans by 33%, pretty significant. And so yeah, we have 5 completed and 38 that are in progress right now. And in flies, we've tested 4 compounds. The winner right now is called urolithin A. And yeah, it basically works on your mitochondria, and this thing I think we were the first group to ever discover that urolithin A increases the lifespan of flies. So super interesting. I mean, we've only been around for a while, and we're already making novel discoveries. Super exciting. And yeah, I think the important piece here is like, this isn't that many data points, but also the fact that there's only been 2,000 compounds tested, like very quickly we'll be able to kind of like lap the entire field in terms of, you know, the amount of data generated. And again, all of this is just a means to train AI on how to help us live longer. So I think the question is like, what do we do with all the data once we get it? Like, are we just going to churn out data and that's the end game? We don't think so. We don't think that the data in itself is intrinsically valuable. We think that really where the value accrues and where we're excited about working with Molecule and this IP protocol is we think that the value accrues to the IP, the actual products that are developed and sold to consumers. And so that's our goal, is to basically either license what we find or develop consumer products ourselves that are actually data-backed longevity supplements. So rather than going to the store, looking at the bottles, whichever one has like the fanciest branding or whichever one is shilled by the best influencer, we are actually trying to make this an objective game where the compounds that have the best evidence for life extension are the ingredients that get included in the end product. It sounds very simple, but it's crazy that like nobody's really doing this. And so many of the compounds that are released by other products and other top products in the market are just ineffective. All right, so what is next? Well, I'm very excited to announce for the first time that we are launching a ton of new compounds. Thanks. So prepare yourselves, the compounds are coming. At the end of the day, we're not going to make any new discoveries unless we launch a ton of compounds. And yes, this is just going to look like a massive token factory, but really what it's all about is helping us live longer. We have to wade into chemical space, see what works. We're going to tokenize every single compound that comes through this funnel and let them all duke it out in the arena. And so the first group of compounds that we're testing is in partnership with VitaDAO. They ran this program called the Longevity Prize. And the Longevity Prize was basically going to all the community members of VitaDAO and seeing who has ideas for what could potentially extend life, and submit your compound into the arena. And so we're basically tokenizing these and launching the experiments on Pump Science in the hopes that we can do further testing on all of these great ideas submitted by the community. So we're launching 17 now. The goal is to launch more in the future and eventually make the entire system permissionless to where there are no gatekeepers, there's nobody stopping you. If you can get a bunch of people to help fund your idea, you can run it. And so look, we get this is probably pretty overwhelming. A ton of new compounds, random names, which ones work, how do they work, how do I pick? Well, I think one important thing to note is that if you look at meme coin traders and like crypto traders in general, they're much more sophisticated than I think meets the eye. It is much more than just like, ooh, doggy coin ape. It's actually a lot of like looking at leading indicators. What percent of the supply is held by the top holders? Are the wallets who have all the tokens related? There are actually like a ton of really, really smart traders who are in the trenches trying to predict which tokens will crank, right? Which will increase in price. And I think at the end of the day, all we're doing is just creating a new class of tokens with new leading indicators that are just scientific. And our goal is to work with a bunch of meme coin traders and convert them to this new class of tokens and see if they'll get on the ride with us. And look, if there are leading indicators that are predictive of which tokens will go up in price, they will find them, and we're here to help them find them. So, but to make the whole system easier, we're kind of creating like two game modes. One is easy mode, one is hard mode. Easy mode is you hold the tokens that perform the best. So rifampicin and urolithin A are what we call kings of the pill. They increase the lifespan of the respective animals the most. And so whoever holds those tokens gets airdrops of all the future tokens that are launched on the platform. And so this is a way for you to not have to pick which ones will work and which don't, but just collect a small amount of airdrops in each. On the other hand is advanced mode, which we're calling hunters. So the whole game is hunters versus gatherers. And the hunters are actually trying to seek the next king of the pill. They're trying to find the one that will dethrone the prior. And so at the end of the day, the whole game is find the compound that extends life in the animals the most. And so if you do, then you get to claim all the new airdrops. And so there's rewards associated with being early into the compound where it ends up working. So how do you hunt? How do you play this game if you want to play it? So one way is to be a scientist, and especially to leverage AI as much as possible. So what we did here is we looked at all the previous data we've generated. Could AI predict the outcome? All this is ground truth. On the x-axis is like the actual data that we generated. On the y-axis is what various LLMs predicted. And what you can see is actually some of the models are predictive. Not all of them. We could probably improve the prompts that we use, but AI can be a tool here to help predict which ones actually work. But of course, if you want to go deeper than that, you can always read more papers and try and synthesize it all. I think we all just know like a prompt and deep research is much easier than reading papers one by one. But the other way to hunt is to be fast. So all of the data that we generate is streamed to our app to all users at the same time. And so what we basically want to do is create a new chart that people watch to try and predict whether the price will go up and down. But for us, these data points are scientific, right? And so what we've realized is that a lot of the science that we expect people to understand is super complex. We're trying to simplify it as much as possible. And so what we've done is basically create charts where up and to the right is good, down and to the right is bad. I think that's something that many traders already have a good association with. And so we're trying to create this new chart that they follow and try and predict the price from. And so what we're going to do in this first release of Compounds is basically stream the data over 12 hours. So it'll go over one day. You can follow these charts. These charts are on every compound page on our site, and you'll basically be able to see which ones are working in real time and try and predict, will one dethrone the king of the pill? Okay. Cool. So on the protocol layer, so more of the crypto side of things, I think it's important to understand a little bit at least. I'm also running out of time, so I'm going to hustle through this. Basically the whole protocol is you launch a token on a bonding curve. Once 85 SOL worth of liquidity has been input into the bonding curve, and then you migrate that SOL to an automated market maker. It's just a more efficient market. 5% of the tokens get airdropped to the king of the pill token holders. 3 SOL pays for the worm experiment. 15% of the tokens are injected into the AMM, and off you go. Now you've got a trading compound token market. We call our design badass. It's bonding curve AMM dual anti-sniper suite. And so basically the goal here is to make a protocol where speed is not an advantage. And so anyone who's launched tokens or participated in token launches or worked on a token launchpad, snipers are deathly because they're very mercenary. They're only there to pump and dump your tokens. They run bots where they can grab supply early. And what you want is loyalty in your users to create an advantage, not speed. And so we've basically created a way to launch tokens but penalize snipers with dynamic fees. And so important if you're going to participate to be careful of this. So look, at the end of the day, we're here for 4 reasons: to develop novel products that increase human lifespan, to grow DeSci by bringing crypto-native users into DeSci, redirect existing trading activity to research with lasting utility, and to make science fun again. We're here for the memes, and would just like to thank our community who's been incredible. It's been crazy ups and downs. Tokens have gone up, tokens have gone down, but there is a strong community of people who believe in what we're doing, and there's nothing better than building for committed people who believe in what you're doing as much as you do. So big shout out to them. They're incredible. Thank you guys for the attention. Hope that was great, and